Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Okay, so it is recording. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa atba'ihi ajma'in. What I will do is I will go ahead and mute everyone. And if you have any questions, please, I believe there is a way to raise your hand or send a message. I will, inshallah, I will unmute you once you have a question. This is so we I cut off all the background noise, inshallah. Okay, as I was telling you guys before we started recording, inshallah, we will recap the class from last week, and then we will have a mini quiz. I will just ask you a few questions, and inshallah, after that, we will continue with the lesson for today. So last week, we started talking about the signs of nouns. We said that when learning any language, the first thing that you need to do is be able to distinguish between nouns, verbs, and particles. So the author, rahimahullah, that is how he starts his book. And I will go ahead and share my screen now, so you see the text of the book. And something I did, as some of you, I believe, brother Ma'rajul requested, for today's lesson, I put all the diacritical marks for the harakat for today's lesson. So inshallah, it'll be easy for you to read it. Let me just share my screen real quick. Okay, I started sharing my screen, but then the view all changed. That's fine. It's not a big deal. Okay, I will unmute. I'll try to unmute some of you to see. Do you guys see the screen? Yes?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yes, we do.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so Bismillah. So as I said last week, we talked about the signs of nouns, and the author, rahimahullah, he started with the sign which we call al-khafd. Al-khafd means lowering. It means linguistically, it means lowering. And in the terminology of grammarians, Arab grammarians, it is one type of inflection. And inflection, as we will read in probably 2 lessons, maybe next week, is the changing that occurs at the end of a noun. Now, what exactly that change is, the nature of that change, inshallah, we'll discuss in detail next week. But just for the time being, know that khafad is one type of inflection. There are 4 types of inflection, and khafd is one of them. So one of the signs of nouns is having this inflection, al-khafd. Okay, and usually because and as I said, al-khafd linguistically means lowering. So usually what you have to do whenever you pronounce this inflection, al-khafd, you have to lower your lip, right? For example, you say qalamu zaydin, right? You say qalamu zaydin. Here, zaydin, you see how when you say zaydin, you have to lower your lip. That indicates khafd, basically. You have two, you have kasratan underneath the dal, you have kasra, which basically is one of the main signs of al-khafd, underneath the dal of Zayd. And that indicates that this Zayd, this word, this word that we pronounce Zayd is a noun. And the second sign of nouns that the author mentions is tanween. Tanween is the diacritical mark that ends with a noon, right? For example, you say جاء زيد زيد رأيت زيدا مررت بزيد. Do you guys hear the noon that I am pronouncing? Yes. Okay. Alhamdulillah. So one thing, as I said, because we are doing this online and it becomes very hard to keep the train of thought, you're not interacting with the students. What I ask is, if you could, when I ask questions and I ask for interactions, if you could help me out and unmute yourself and answer and respond. Yes, inshallah. This will make it easier for me to continue my train of thought. Okay, so as I said, at-tanween is is the diacritical mark, or is the short vowel that ends with a noun, with a noon. Sorry. For example, Zaydan. You guys see this diacritical mark, fatha, Zayda, and yes, then it ends with a noon, Zaydan. That is a tanween. And the same thing with a kasra, Zaydi. There is a kasra, and then we add a noon to it, Zaydin. And then the same thing with a dhamma. You say Zaydu, and then you add a noon to it, Zaydun. That becomes a tanween as well. So Zaydan, Zaydin, Zaydun. Whenever you see a word having this diacritical mark, that means that word is a noun. Okay, because a verb will never end like this. Will never end like Zaydun with a dhamma and a noon. Would never end with a kasra and a noon, and would never end with a fatha and a noon. So that is the second sign of nouns. The third sign of nouns is alif and lam. So if you see at the beginning of a word, if you see alif and lam, you know that word is a noun, right? If you see at the beginning of a word, you see alif and lam, that word is a noun. Why? Because alif and lam, these are the definite article in the Arabic language. Just like in English, when you say the, right? When you say the, what you expect to come after the is a noun, right? You don't expect a verb to come after the, like the book, the pen, right? The mountain. These are all nouns. The same thing whenever an alif and lam comes before a word, you know that whatever is coming out, basically that word at the beginning of which alif and lam exists, that word is a noun. Like al-qalam, the pen, right? Al-kitab, the book. So that was the third one. And the fourth and last one that he mentions is huruf al-khafd, the particles of khafd. So what's the difference between, some of you may ask, what is the difference between al-khafd, right? Which I said is a type of inflection, and huruf al-khafd, the particles of khafd, right? So what you have to understand is, he is telling us, he is trying to convey, make it clear to us, the signs of nouns, right? And the first one, the first sign that he mentions, which is al-khafd, this appears at the end of a word. As I said, inflection is a change that appears that exists or manifested at the end of a word, right? So this sign is something that appears at the end of a word. The sign appears where? At the end of a word. But the particles of khafd, which are the particles that cause this inflection, these are the agents that cause this inflection, which we call al-khafd. these particles come at the beginning of a word, before a word, right? So there are two ways for you to determine whether a word is a noun through khafd. The first one is you look whether there is a particle of khafd at the beginning. If you see a particle of khafd at the beginning of a word, that means that word is a noun. And then you look at the inflection. If you see the inflection of that word is al-khafd, you know what? You know that word is a noun. So the one sign, the first sign appears at the end. The fourth sign, which he mentions here, huruf al-khafd, these appear at the beginning, right? So these are different signs that you look for, and inshallah it will become more clear as we go through the book. But some of the so the huruf al-khafd, the particles of khafd that he mentions, the first one is min, which means from. The second one is ila, which means to. The third one is an, which means from or about, depending on the context. And the fourth one is ala, which is on or over or upon. The fifth one is fi, which is in. The sixth one is rubba, which means it could either mean often or rarely. This is one of those words in Arabic that it could have two opposite meanings. The seventh one is al-ba, which means by. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, by the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful. The eighth one is al-kaf, which means like, as. The ninth one is al-lam, which means for or belongs. And because last week I believe I went through these examples, right? Did I go through the examples that I have provided last week, or did I not? I don't remember.
Yes, you did.
Okay, so
you went through the examples.
Okay, so this week we won't go through the examples. So the ninth one is al-lam, as I said, it means for or belongs. The 10th one, and this is the last one he will mention, is huruf al-qasam, the particles of oath. And these are three particles: al-waw, wallahi; al-ba, billahi; at-ta, tallahi, right? Or afwan, tallahi. Wallahi, billahi, tallahi. Now, they all mean by Allah. If you were to translate all of them into English, we would say by Allah. But I mentioned, I believe last week, what's the difference between them when it comes to their use in Arabic. And sometimes when you want to really swear by Allah, I know Somali people, sometimes they say wallahi, billahi, tallahi, you know, just to convey, like they use all three just to convey how serious they are. So yeah, so that's something. If you want to do that, that's fine. Okay, so now what I will do is I will ask you some questions, which should be fairly easy. So what I have here is a few verses of the Quran and then a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What we will do, inshallah, we will go through each and we will try to distinguish, we will try to identify the nouns based on the signs that we have studied. Okay, so the first one is what we start the Quran with. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Can you guys see? Yes?
Yes, we can.
So, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. A'udhu, so that what you do not recognize, it doesn't mean that you don't know the answer. It may be a verb or a particle, which we have not discussed yet. We have not discussed the signs of verbs, and we have not discussed the signs of particles. So I won't hold it against you if you don't know, if you can't identify those. But what can you see here that you would say it's a noun?
Allah.
Hey,
Okay, very
we
good.
have
Starts with
Billahi.
Yes,
Okay.
we
Billah.
have Billahi.
So it's
Billah.
okay. So
actually
let's take billahi first. Billahi. Why do we say billahi? Why do we say Allah is a noun here? Obviously, we know because Allah is something that we've known from the beginning what Allah means. But take that knowledge, extract or ignore that knowledge, and tell me based on grammatical rules why do we think Allah is a noun? Yes.
Sheikh,
Brother, that's
there is a particle of oath at the beginning of the word Allah. So that's
Okay.
Alba at the beginning
Okay.
of Allah. So that
Okay.
indicates that, yes.
Okay.
Should we continue?
Okay. Yes. So what I ask is, so ba is a particle of oath, but it is also a particle of khafad, which means by the name, right?
Yes.
So here in this case,
Yes.
so your answer was correct. It is a particle of khafad, which particle of oath is also a particle of khafd, but it is not a particle of oath that you swear by. So here we are not saying I swear by Allah, but rather we are saying I seek refuge by Allah. Yeah, I seek refuge by Allah. So that's the only distinction. But that basically you got the main concept here, that because we see a ba here, Allah is a noun, right? Barakallah fikum. What's the next one?
Ash-Shaytan.
Okay, very good. Who
There's
said
a
that? Brother Haidar?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, so
it
why
was
did you say
difficult
Ashaitan? So why did you
because
say
there's a
Ashaitan?
min. There's a
Okay,
min in front of it,
okay.
right?
So there's another exactly, very beautiful. There's another sign. That who can tell me the other
yes.
sign here? Yes, brother Muhammad.
Alif wal lam.
Alif one lam. Yes, very good. Another sign. Who can tell me the other sign?
ending with a noon, the resonant N,
Yeah.
tanween.
Yeah.
Okay,
Tanween.
very
Not a
that
tanween. Yeah.
that is beautiful. So so here there's another distinction that we have to make. Sometimes a noon is like explicit at the end of a word, right? So you can clearly see the noon, right? Whenever you clearly see the letter noon, that would not be considered tanween. Okay, even though it would fall under the definition I gave you. I guess I should have been more clear. A tanween is when you have okay, so here you see this part dun. You see the dhamma and a squiggly line on top of the dhamma. So that is how a tanween is written. So I apologize because this I should have explained this better. That is how a tanween is written. Tanween is written sometimes with two dhammas on top of each other, sometimes with a dhamma and then a crooked line on top of the dhamma. Okay, so that is what tanween is. So here, the answer is correct. By the answer that was given is partially correct because brother Mi'rajul saw the end of a word. He identified something, a sign at the end of the word, but that sign is the kasra without the noon, because the noon here is part of the word. The noon here
Right.
is not.
Shaitan is shaitan.
Yeah, but when we say tanween, tanween is not part of the word, but it is a sign of inflection. Is that clear?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So yes. Any questions? Okay.
Oh.
So so we identified, very good. We have identified two nouns. What is the next noun here?
Ar-Rajim.
Rajim. Al-Rajim is Alif and
Very
Lam.
good. Very good. Yes. Al-Rajim. There's Alif and Lam. There's another sign in Al-Rajim. Oh, say pronounce Al-Rajim with the diacritical mark at the end, what happens to your lip? Do you raise it, or with the kasra? How do you pronounce it?
Rajimi. So you
Uh,
lower.
You lower. So this is what the sign of khafd, right? This is khafd. I said khafd linguistically means lowering. So whenever you find yourself lowering your lips when pronouncing a word, you know that like 99% of the time that is a noun. There are exceptions, which inshallah we'll talk about. But here you see a kasra here, and kasra here is a sign of khafd, the inflection that we call al-khafd. Okay, is that clear?
Yes.
Okay, so bismi. Now here, what? Who can tell me the noun here? Just name one noun.
Bismi is
It's starting with ba.
Very good, very ism, very good. And the reason we don't write the hamza, we don't write bi ismi, because there's something in Arabic we call kathratul isti'mal, the abundance of usage. Because bismillah is used so often by people, by Muslims. And if every time you said bismillah, you have to say bi ismillah, it would be very difficult on you, right? So whenever something is used very often, there's a qaida or a rule amongst Arabs. They try to make it easier to pronounce, or they will try to modify it somehow. So here, instead of saying bi ismi, the hamza is dropped. We say bismi, right? But originally, like the sin and the meme, they indicate that there was a hamza there, so that basically the noun that the ba comes before is ism. Ism is a noun, right? How do we know, like Brother Radwan said, how do you know ism is a noun? Because there was a ba that come. Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Yes, there is a ba.
Yes, there is a ba. And here this ba means by, meaning by the name of Allah. Go ahead, Brother Muhammad.
it also a possibility where it ends bismi? So we are lowering our lips again. So is this also a sign, or no? Here it's only ba.
So here, exactly, very good. I mean, that was my next question. Here as well, whenever you see, so basically the particles of khafd, like I said, they cause the inflection of al-khafd. So they will cause you to lower your lips when you pronounce something. Brother Haidar, Fahad Haidar, I believe you have a question. Or
I raised my hand a while ago for the ruba, that word, because you said it was opposite. So
yeah. So what was your question?
Oh no, it's like, how do you find out then if the words are like completely different? Like, let's say you see it in a sentence, how do you know it's, which it's used? But
yeah,
I guess we can talk about it later. It's okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. Inshallah, we'll talk about it. That's a good question. Inshallah, we'll talk about it. Inshallah. Okay, have we lost anyone from the call? Just every once in a while, I will check on you to make sure we haven't lost anyone. So we have, okay, believe. I don't see, is Brother Marajul here? Okay, so he may have dropped off, or maybe his internet messed up again. Can you guys, we are still reviewing, but do you guys want to text them in the meanwhile as we are reviewing, while we are doing our mini quiz? So the next one, we have already spoken about Allah. We already know from the previous question that Allah is a noun. And then what is Ar-Rahmi? Ar-Rahman. Ar-Rahman is a verb or a noun?
It's a.
What'd you say, Brother Haida?
Yeah, it's a noun, isn't it?
It's a noun, yes. Exactly. It starts with
can I?
alif and yes.
You know, like why do we pronounce it as Ar-Rahman, not Al-Rahman? Is it like the making it easier, like you said, or was it something else?
So there are actually there's something which are we call al-kalimat ash-shamsiyya wal-qamariyya. So when you say ash-shams, there is alif
Ash-Shams.
and lam, right? There is alif and lam, but you
Yeah.
don't pronounce the lam, right? You say ash-shams.
Mhm.
And when you say al-qamar, right? Al-qamar, you
Mm.
pronounce the lam very explicitly. So, in Arabic, the words that start with alif and lam fall either under the first category or the second category. The first category where you don't pronounce the lam, and the second category where you do pronounce the lam. So, inshallah, that will also be something we'll talk about later. But for now, just know sometimes you will pronounce the lam, sometimes you won't pronounce the lam. Inshallah.
Thank you.
And usually the sign for you when reading something, the sign is if you see afwan. Okay, I need to find this. Okay, so when you see a shadda and I forget where the shadda is. Okay, found it. My keyboard doesn't have the Arabic alphabet. Okay, so when you see a shadda on the letter that comes after the lam, you know that you don't pronounce the
Oh
lam.
yeah.
You say ar-Rahman, ash-shams. But if there is no shadda, okay, if there is no shadda, that means you pronounce the lam, like al-qamar, okay, or al-Madina. For example, here you see how there is a sukun on lam. That indicates that you pronounce the lam, al-Madina. Okay. So inshallah, we'll talk about that more. Yes, Brother Muhammad.
There is an alif missing after meme in Ar-Rahman, I guess.
Okay, so here we don't write the alif, but we pronounce it. So there's like a
Really?
small alif. Yeah.
Oh, at the top.
Yeah, so there's like a small alif on the top, but I couldn't find it. I don't know where it is on the keyboard. I couldn't put it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So Ar-Rahman, we know it's a noun. Why? Because there's alif and lam. We know also, so this because we already discussed this, I'm going to go over it. We know also because it's a noun because there's a kasra at the end, right? There's khafd. Here Ar-Rahim is also a noun because there's an alif and lam. And then we also know it's a noun because there's a kasra at the end, right? So here, just from, okay, it's about to, okay, it's about to kick us out. So here, just by reading like 2 lines from the book, we can clearly distinguish between nouns, like identify nouns in the Quran, right? Which is, I think, pretty impressive for just 1 lesson, right? Alhamdulillah. So, okay, so here again, we know Allah is lafz al-jalala, a noun. What is this? Ahadun.
It's tanween.
So tanween, exactly. Tanween is a sign of nouns. Very good, beautiful. Tanween is a sign of noun. So ahadun becomes a noun, right? Because there's a sign of nouns here. Very, very beautiful. Brother Muhammad, you had a question.
This is actually it's an attribute of Allah, right? Ahad is an attribute.
Ahad
So it falls into the So it falls into the attribute category or the noun category then?
So basically, in Arabic, the division is not like it is in English, right? In English, I believe you have 8 or 9 parts of speech. Basically, main parts of speech, like these are parent categories. In Arabic, we have 3 parent categories, and every other part of speech that we read about in English fall underneath these 3 parent categories. For example, an adjective, which would be an attribute, falls under nouns. Why? Because it falls under our definition for a noun, right? I said, if you remember when we defined a noun is a word that conveys meaning by itself, is independent in conveying meaning, and it is not tied to any of the tenses, right? So an adjective would fall under that category, right? So I believe the division in Arabic is much more straightforward. Like it's very easier to understand and to memorize. So okay, so قل هو الله أحد. أحد, as you said, أحد, أحد. Here, أحد. Well, this is here in this verse. أحد is a predicate, right? Allah is the subject and أحد is the predicate. Even though mean in English you would call it basically meaning. In meaning, it's an attribute. It's an adjective. But in this sentence, if we were to explain the i'rab, as we say, ahad would be a predicate. It would not be a sifa in Arabic, which is an attribute, which is an adjective. Okay. So here, as-samadu. As-samadu is a noun, verb, or a particle. Noun. We know it's very easy because we have alif and lam, right? And we don't have a kasra here because it's not makhfud. There's no khafd. So here the only sign that we have is alif and lam. Here I'm not gonna ask you about these because none of these are nouns, and I don't expect you to know them. Also these, but how about this one? What do you say? What do you see at the end of kufuwan?
Kufuwan, so lowering of the lips.
Very good. Yes. Kufuwan. No. Kufuwan. You open the lips. Kufuwan. This is fatha. Right?
It's a noun because of the tanween.
Very good. It's a noun because of the tanween. Who mentioned that?
Yes.
Sir, it's Faiz.
Oh, Faiz. Very good. Ahadun. What is ahadun?
It's tanween.
That's a noun as well. Yeah, that's a tanween.
Yeah, exactly. It's a tanween. So the same as this one. So that's easy. Okay, so I won't spend more on this. What I ask is for you to go over this verse.
Brother Miraj has texted that he's having serious trouble with his internet, so he's trying his best.
Okay, inshallah. Inshallah, alhamdulillah, this is being recorded, so you can definitely watch it afterwards. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. This is a verse from or this is a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Al-Amal is what?
Noun.
Al-Amal is a noun. There's an alif and lam at the beginning, right?
Yes.
Bin-niyati, an-niyat. What is an-niyat?
Intention, and it is a noun.
It is a noun because there's a ba, right?
Ba, right.
And there's also a what at the end?
Kasra.
Lowering.
Kasra. Lowering, yes, very beautiful. Alhamdulillah, so that's good. I just wanted to show you this, and inshallah we see now how useful just 1-2 lines of the book have been in reading the Quran and identifying the nouns. So inshallah, let's go back to our lesson. First of all, I believe Brother Faiz and Brother Marajuddin, they had questions. Did I answer your questions, or you still have them?
Yeah, Sheikh, most of the questions have been answered already.
Okay,
so
alhamdulillah.
Should I still ask the remaining questions?
Please do, yes.
Okay, Brother Miraj is not here, but I'll ask the questions anyway. So Sheikh, I'll try to tell you what I've understood. Now you correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. So let me just take 1 minute. So since we are Okay, 1 minute. Okay, Mirajul is unable to join us.
If you feel more comfortable, what we can do is leave all the questions till the end of class, or you can send me an email with all your questions. However you would prefer.
Sheikh, now I'll ask at least one of the questions.
Okay.
Um, since we are correlating or associating these lessons with English grammar, I mean, we are learning this Arabic grammar with the help of English grammar. So
Yes.
that's why I'm asking this question. So there are 8 parts of speeches in English, right? And
yes,
as I can see here, there are 3 parts of speech in Arabic grammar. So
okay. Yes.
you have already answered a part of it, that Arabic grammar, the first parts of speech in Arabic grammar, the noun, it covers the 2 of the parts of speech in English grammar, the noun and the adjective. So I get it.
Yes.
Now the second parts of speech in the Arabic grammar, verb, it covers the verb of the English grammar. I get it. So the last parts of speech in the Arabic grammar, particle. So would this cover the remaining of the 5 parts of speech in the English grammar?
No, actually,
Like,
most of, yes, a good question. Most of the parts of speech in English grammar fall under nouns, right? And Arabic, and some of them fall under particles. And obviously, but inshallah, what I will do for next class, I will map every single part of speech in English to its to what it corresponds to in Arabic grammar. So inshallah, it'll be easier for you. Inshallah, I'll add it to these slides. It'll be very easy. I don't want to spend that much time over on that right now, because I want to mention, like, go over the new lesson, and I believe it'll be easier for you to see it on the slides as well. But that's a good question. I think that's a that's an answer that should be clarified in these slides, inshallah. Slide 13. Okay.
Yes, my second question was about identifying the nouns. So in your slide 13 and 14, we were trying to identify the nouns. So the first of the 3 ways were al-Qaf, tanween, and alif wal lam. I think we have got it all memorized. So now my question was, we have 3 parts of speech in Arabic grammar. The last one is particles. So now, why would the number 4 of the ways we would identify a noun, why would the number 4 be the particles of lowering? And we are trying to identify a noun. Is it through our particles? Through the particles?
Yes.
The third parts
yes.
of speech. Yes.
Yeah, that's a good question. So when we say a sign of nouns is particles of khafad, we are simply saying that if you see a particle of khafad before a word, you know that word is a noun. And now we are not saying anything specific about the nature of those particles of khafad, but rather we are using them as a tool to identify nouns, right? So, and that is perfectly fine. There's no contradiction between what we said at the beginning and making particles of khafd a sign for nouns. So we basically, I believe the question arises, and the reason you have this question is because at the beginning we said there are 3 parts of speech, and a noun, a verb, and a particle, and nouns, verbs, and particles. And why is it that we are identifying nouns with particles? So the problem would arise if I told you we are identifying nouns with nouns, right? That would be like, well, we are trying to figure out what nouns are. Now you tell me that we have to know what nouns are to know what nouns are, right? Because if I tell you that nouns becomes a sign of nouns, that I'm like putting you in an infinite loop. But if I tell you particles, certain particles at the beginning of words are signs of nouns, that is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, brother. So it also raises another question. In a sentence, in a Arabic sentence, would this particle of khafd would
Yes.
just immediately be before the noun?
Yeah, the particles of khafd, they by default they come right before a noun. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So, and from the first question that you have answered, you will identify those parts of speeches. You will connect those parts of speeches, the English grammar and the Arabic grammar. So
Yes.
that will answer my third question. So I'm not asking that because in the particles of lowering, the nine ways, the nine particles. So I can see that the first 5 of them are basically prepositions, and the last 4 from rubba to alam, these are basically adverbs. Okay, so
very good. Yes.
I'm not asking this question since you will be already connecting those English grammar and Arabic grammar.
Yes.
So I'll
Yeah.
get my answer then, brother.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. No, that's a good point that you made. Like I said, a lot of the parts of speech in English fall under nouns, and a lot of them fall under particles. So some of them fall under nouns, and some of them fall under particles. So inshallah, I will add that slide to my notes. Inshallah, that's a good question. Jazakumullah khairan. So any other questions before we start today's lesson? Okay. So today's lesson, we will move on to verbs. We already know the signs of nouns, and now we will go ahead and talk about the signs of verbs. How do we identify what is a verb in a sentence? Which word is a verb in a sentence? So again, with verbs also there are 4 signs. The author says, let me correct this diacritical mark here. And the author says, وَالْفِعْلُ يُعْرَفُ. The author says, وَالْفِعْلُ يُعْرَفُ. Which means, and the verb is known by بِقَدْ, by the word قَدْ. Inshallah, I will explain that right now. وَالسِّينِ, and by the letter sin. وَسَوْفَ, by the word سَوْفَ. وَتَاءُ التَّأْنِيثِ السَّاكِنَةِ, and the silent feminine ta. The silent feminine ta. Inshallah, I will explain that as well. So the first one, as soon as you see qad at the beginning of a word, immediately that word is a verb. Okay, just like with the particles of khafd. As soon as we saw these particles at the beginning of a word, we knew what? We knew what about the word? We knew that word is a noun, right? Here, qad serves a very similar role, but for verbs. Qad at the beginning of a word indicates that word is a verb, right? For example, you guys all have heard when the mu'adhan makes iqama, he says what? قد قامت الصلاة, right? قد قامت الصلاة. So basically that qad that the mu'adhan says is exactly this qad that we're talking about. When he says قد قامت الصلاة, قامت means established. Indeed, it is established. Indeed, salat, prayer, is being established. Indeed, it is very close for salat to be established, right? Established is a verb or a noun. It's a verb, right? You're saying established. There's an ed, meaning makes it past tense. And we said the definition of a verb in Arabic is a word that conveys meaning independently, but it is tied to one of the 3 tenses, either past tense, present, future, or the imperative. So here, we say qamat is a verb. How do you know? Because there's a qad at the beginning. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay. So that's the first one. The second one is as seen. The second one is a sin, which basically the letter sin, the sound s, and that indicates something is very near, right? For example, if you say Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Quran, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وستردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. And soon Allah Azza wa Jal will return you to the world of the unseen and the seen. فَيُنَبِّئُكُم بِمَا كُنتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ, and he will inform you, he will tell you of everything that you used to do, right? So here, because it is very near for every single one of us, death is very near, right? And also we know that the day of judgment is also very near, based on the sayings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Allah Azza wa Jal here is telling us that it is very soon it will happen that you will go back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he will ask you, or he will tell you about everything that you used to do on earth, right? He will tell you of all your deeds, all your good deeds, and all your bad deeds. So here, seen indicates immediateness. Indicates immediateness of the verb that follows. Okay, but when it comes to it being a sign of verbs, what it indicates is that whatever comes after seen is a verb. The word that comes after seen is what? Is a verb. So here we see seen, and then we see turadduna. What does this indicate? That turadduna is what?
It's a verb.
It's a verb, right? Yeah. So again, yeah, it's a verb because there's a sin. So I apologize. Now I believe I translated it wrong. It is getting very late here, so I apologize if I start making mistakes. وَسَتُرَدُّونَ إِلَى عَالِمِ الْغَيْبِ وَالشَّهَادَةِ, and it is near, very close. It is very close that you will be returned to the knower of the unseen and the seen, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَيُنَبِّئُكُمْ, and he will inform you of everything that you used to do. I believe I made a small mistake here. I don't remember. I probably read alim as alam. So here, but going back to the point I was trying to make, saturaduna, turaduna here as a verb. Why? How do we know? Because there is a sin at the beginning. And as I said, sin indicates immediateness. For example, if I said sa'usalli, meaning it means I am about to pray. I am about to pray. When I say I am about to do something, it indicates that whatever I will do is happening immediately after my statement. Okay, so I kind of say like sa translates to about. I am about to do something. And then sawfa is the third sign of verbs. If you see sawfa at the beginning of a verb, a word, it indicates that word is a verb. For example, sawfa astaghfiru lakum rabbi. I will ask for forgiveness. I will ask forgiveness for you from my Lord, right? Now here, when you say I will, it doesn't indicate that you will do it immediately, right? It indicates that you will do it in the future, but it doesn't mean that you will do it in the immediate future. So that's the difference between seen and sawfa. When seen comes before a verb, it indicates the immediate future, like whatever the verb that will, whatever action you will take it immediately after your statement. When you use sawfa, it does not indicate immediateness, but rather there is a gap between your statement and the action that you will perform. Does that make sense? Okay. وتاء التأنيث. وتاء التأنيث عفوا, this should be okay. وتاء التأنيث الساكنة, and the silent feminine ta. And this ta indicates that the verb which it is attached to is being, the action of that verb is being performed by a female, right? Or by something that feminine, whether, regardless of whether it is a true female or it is feminine, metaphorically, right? So here, for example, when we say قَدْ قَامَتِ الصَّلَاةِ, or when we say قَدْ قَامَتِ الصَّلَاةِ, prayer, you see this ta at the end of qama, right? So this ta indicates that salat is a feminine word, even though a salat is not a female, but because it has a sign of femininity in pronunciation, which is this ta right now, just this ta right here, and then you would have to use this ta at the end of a verb as well, just to show that the word that comes after that verb is feminine. It's not masculine. And here as well, the example that I provided here is more clear. قالت ربي أن يكون لي ولد ولم يمسسني بشر. Maryam alayhi salam, when the angels gave her glad tidings that she will have a child, Isa alayhi salam, she said, قالت, she said, Rabbi, oh my Lord, how is it possible that I will have a child and no one has ever touched me, right? Now here, if this was basically if this was a male speaking, for example, you wouldn't add this ta here. If it was a male speaking, you would say, for example, Zakaria said, قال رب اجعل لي آية. Zakaria alayhi salam, which is one of the prophets, and he was tasked with taking care of Maryam alayhi salam. He said, when the angels gave him glad tidings about having a child by the name of Yahya, he said, he asked Allah Azza wa Jal for a sign when this is about to happen. قال رب اجعل لي آية. He said, oh Allah, give me a sign that will tell me that this child is about to come. قال آياتك ألا تكلم الناس ثلاثة أيام. He said, Allah Azza wa Jal said, your sign is that you will not be able to speak to anyone for 3 days, right? But what I am trying to say here, قال, he said, قال رب اجعل لي آية. He said, he did not, Allah Azza wa Jal does not say, Zakaria said قالت, because Zakaria was a male, was not a female. So the feminine ta was not used at the end of the verb qala. Qala means said, basically. And if I was to translate qala to English, I would say said. So here, qala means said. This ta indicates that whoever is the individual who is saying, who is speaking, is a female, or is feminine, or whatever the verb that, or what comes after that verb is feminine. Okay, so here, as I said, qalat rabbi, this is what Maryam alayhi salam says, and Maryam is a female, as we all know, so we added this ta. قال رب اجعل لي آية. Zakaria alayhi salam, he is a male, so we did not add a ta to qalat. But so that's, I guess we got sidetracked. Yes, brother Haidar.
Sorry, very quick question. This ta is not feminine. It's not silent, is it?
قالت ربي, yes, it is silent. قالت. Silent meaning
okay.
When we say silent, we mean there's a sukun on it. Meaning there is no fatha, kasra, or dhamma, right?
Oh, okay. Right. That makes it clear.
I think you're confusing with the
English silent.
Yeah, okay. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so here, yes.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
No problem at all. But here, what I basically, whenever you see a ta at the end of a word, what does that indicate? That indicates that word which comes before the ta is a verb. Is a verb. In the case, it is a verb. So that's the fourth sign of verbs. قد, السين, سوف, وتاء التأنيث الساكنة. And now, inshallah, we'll stop here. No, actually, I think I'm going to talk about particles as well, because particles are really easy. So particles, the muallif says, rahimahullah, والحرف ما لا يصلح معه دليل الاسم ولا دليل الفعل. And a particle is the part of speech that is not compatible with the indicators of nouns nor the indicators of verbs. Or in other words, a particle is a part of speech that that does not accept the signs of nouns or the signs of verbs. So this is by process of elimination, you'll know what a particle is, right? Is it okay? So you don't see any signs of of nouns, and you don't see any signs of verbs. You automatically know it's a what? It's a particle. Yeah, yeah. So I guess this is the easiest of all of them. So if you don't see any of those signs, you know it's a particle. I guess it could be the hardest of all of them too, because then now you know all you need to know the signs of nouns and verbs to know particles, right? But for nouns, you just know you need to know the signs of nouns, and for verbs, you just need to know the signs of verbs. But to be able to distinguish particles, you need to know every sign to know whether it's a particle or not. But inshallah, this will be a piece of cake. I'm not trying to scare you. So brother Alamuddin, you mentioned, inshallah, we'll get back. You were I cut you off, but inshallah at the end I'll come back to you bi'idhnillah and ask you. There was something you said that at the end of class, inshallah, I'll ask you about.
All right.
Okay, so here now, inshallah, we'll stop because we only have 9 minutes. We are about to run out of time. Zoom again, it's gonna close the call, stop the call on us. So any questions before I speak about or ask you the questions I want to ask you? Is everything clear? Everything that we discussed, is it clear?
I have a question.
Yes, brother Muhammad, yes.
You mentioned the ayat in Surah Al-Maryam that when Zakaria alayhi salam says these are the words of Allah, Kalamullah, and Allah says that Zakaria is saying, right? Qala.
Yes, yes.
And then Allah says that we are saying Qala again. So is it this way that the speech works for the first person and the third person, that both of them are Qala?
So Allah Azza wa Jalla is talking about a conversation that took place between Zakaria and the angels. So basically, when Allah Azza wa Jalla says قال آياتك ألا تكلم, يعني Allah Azza wa Jalla told Zakaria through the angels that your signs are the sign that you're asking for is is that you will yeah, 3 days of not speaking. Or you can say that this was a wahi that came to not necessarily through angels, because there were different methods of revelation has taken place in different ways, in multiple ways. So we don't know exactly which type of revelation this was. The second part of the conversation, we know the first part of the conversation was between the angels and Zakaria. The angels were tasked, Allah Azza wa Jal told them to take this message to Zakaria. But the second part of the conversation, we don't know exactly what type of revelation that was, whether it was through angels or whether it was a different type of revelation. Yeah, but that's a good question. That's a good question, yes. And that is in the chapter of Al-Imran, by the way. Al-Imran.
So then Qala is for the third person, like when Zakaria alayhi salam is saying and when the angels are saying, presumably.
Yes.
Then when I say that I said, then it should be Qul, or it's not Qul, then it's actually...
Yes, Qultu. Qultu. You say Qultu, that means I said in past tense.
Okay. Shukran. Jazakallah.
No problem. Wa iyyakum. Jazakumullah khairan for the question. Any other questions? Okay, if no other questions, we'll go back to the example here. And I will, okay, so here, obviously this book that we're studying is a beginner's book. So the mu'allaf only mentions some of the, like the major signs. He does not mention every single sign that exists. But inshallah, these are enough. That's I mean, what the signs that we've mentioned are, those signs are enough for you guys. But then in the next and the more advanced books, inshallah, we'll talk about the other signs as well. But here, when I look at it, I don't see anything that you would recognize as far as verbs are concerned. But this would be a verb, for example, yalid. Yulad, this would be a verb. Yakun, this would be a verb. What else? Ja'a, this would be a verb. Qala, this is easy, right? Qala is a verb, right? We spent the past 5 minutes talking about qala. Ukhruj is a verb. Yeah, so for example, one of the signs that the author did not mention is jazm. Basically, when you have jazm like this, jazm means like being cut off. When it's silent like this, when a letter, the last letter of a word is silent, that usually is a good indicator that it's a verb. But inshallah, we'll talk about that later. I will try to come up with a better example in which those signs that we discussed are present. But I guess the best you can refer to here to the examples I provided here for if you wanna have examples, right? If you wanna have examples to refer back to. So these are all examples that you can refer back to later when you study, inshallah. Is that clear? Okay. Inshallah, we'll stop here. We won't read more of the text. And I will go ahead and stop the recording, and we will continue the discussion that we had before we started. Before, I believe, when was that? Before, when we got cut off, when the video stopped. Jazakumullah khairan.